Good morning, Mesa Regal. My name is Dan Trammell. I live here in the resort on 17th Street. I'm going to show you one of my hidden talents, which is bicycle repair. We're going to show you some basic things that you can do yourself, or I can help you with them too. The first thing we want to show you is how to oil your chain and your cables to make everything last better in this Arizona sun and monsoon and all the weathers we get. Number one will be the chain. Luckily, I have a stand to put my bike on. Not everybody does. However, for me, I can take my chain and I can roll it and I can squirt the oil onto the chain just like this as we pedal. Once the whole chain is saturated, you're good to go. The next thing we do is oil the cables. Oiling the cables, every bicycle is different, the cable design is different. My bike is very easy to do, so I'll show you. You shift the bike to the very top rear gear on the rear derailleur while pedaling, and then shift it all the way down, which makes this cable loose. This will come right out, just like that. This will come out just like this, and you can take your oil and you can squirt it right on the cable, and the oil will actually follow the cable right into the cable housing, and it does a great job. And you can do that on each section, including the very front cable right here. And as you shift, that oil will work its way through and keep your cables healthy and long lasting. This bike is 20 years old and it has the original cables. Basically because I've kept them oiled. So we're going to put everything back in its housings. And once we do that, we can shift the bike back into the gears it belongs in and the cable's back tight again. Okay. Next, we're going to work on steering head bearings. Many of the bikes that come to me in the resort here for repair are steering head bearing repairs. When these come loose, the bike becomes dangerous, can cause you to fall, and other issues. So the steering head bearings are right here. And when people bring me their bikes, quite often they've tried to adjust them themselves and they over tighten them. So I've already loosened this, but you can see this steering head is loose, which can cause you to lose control of the bike and fall. We take this nut off, it comes up, this washer comes up, it has a little tab in it so it goes back in the same way. This screw right here, you tighten that down, wiggle the bike a little, and that goes no more than hand tight. We see quite often people put wrenches on those and it destroys the bearings to where the whole set needs to be replaced, which is going to cost you labor and the parts. So hand tight, this goes back on with the tab in the middle, this screws on normally. There we go. Now with that washer and the tab in place, it won't tighten the bearing anymore, so you can now put a wrench on this nut and that should be tightened, not super tight, but tight enough to where it won't come loose. Okay, there are also two styles of steering head bearings. We're going to move to a different bike and I'll show you how that one works. Okay, so now the next type of steering head bearings we have adjust slightly differently. These has this adjustment screw in the top right here, pretty much always an Allen wrench, and you loosen these screws here, which I have them tighter than I should, but that's okay, they won't come loose. We loosen those. They don't have to be really loose, just loose enough so the steering head will turn on this. Now, same thing as the first bike we showed you. This does not have to be very tight. Just enough turn where you're putting a slight bit of pressure on the bearings, but not forcing them to break the race inside. So you just very slightly tighten those, and then you retighten these nuts so it holds that adjustment. Very important to keep these steering head bearings adjusted so that the bike handles correctly. Okay, the next thing we find is a flat tire. Flat tires are pretty easy to fix. It depends on if you're out on a ride someplace and have to do it out on the ride, which I'm going to kind of demonstrate. The first thing you'll have to do so the tire will come out is disconnect your brakes. Otherwise that tire will not fit through there. This has a quick release front axle, and I wanted to do it on this bike because some of the bikes that come to me for repair, those axles are not put in correctly and your front wheel or back wheel can fall off if it's not done correctly. So on this bike I need to loosen this a little. Turn that so you can see. And then I can lift this bike right off of the axle, and I have my flat tire in hand. Now when riding outside the park, you want a set of these tools.
Oh, hang on.
They're at Walmart, real cheap, like $5 a set at the most. And you can reach underneath here, make sure you don't get your tube caught, and slide that around just like that, and you're halfway there. The next thing you do is get your tube pulled out of the stem, out of the hole in the wheel, and pull your tube out. Now we'll talk about tubes when I get to the next section, but here this tube, because I didn't really have a flat, is still good. So I'm going to reuse it, but I'm going to hang it here. We always check the entire tire to see if there's something that caused the flat, like something I ran over. That's nothing. And if you don't see anything, take your fingers carefully and run across the inside to make sure there's something that you can't see, like a small piece of glass or something. Be very careful, it can cut you. And check to see if there's something in the tire that is causing it to go flat, because you might put a new tube or patch your tube, put it back together, and voila, you have another flat. All right, so now that we have that done, we're going to put it back in. You start by putting the tube nipple into the hole, just like that. Start the tire around it. We always put a little bit of air in the repaired tube because it goes in and stays in place better. Okay, once that's done, most of it you can put on without the tire tool, just by pushing it into place. And sometimes you'll need the tire tool. I'm going to demonstrate just so you see. When you use this, you slide it in and you look to make sure you haven't caught a part of the tube, because you can pinch the tube and reflatten it. Okay, now that the tube is in, you make sure the nipple is straight. If it's not coming out straight, it'll cause another flat. Now we're going to add some air. On most of our park bikes that use a 26-inch tube, we don't want to go over 40 pounds. And this pump, these are about $25 at Walmart. If you take them up to the park compressor, it will pop these tubes in about 3 seconds. you guys are enjoying this. It's about 100 degrees this morning while we're filming. There we go, 40 pounds. We're good to go. And I can put this back on the bicycle. So put this back on the bicycle, slide it over, back on. Now here's the part that's very important. Remember this is completely loose here. If I left it like that, the wheel could fall off while you're riding. You tighten the opposite side until this is actually snug before you start to push it. And when you push it, that's almost too snug. And when you lock that in, it should be very hard. And that locks that wheel onto the bicycle so it cannot fall off. Okay, the next segment will be adjusting your shifters. Also, there are several styles of shifters on bicycles. Some are the twist grips. Some use the ratchet, the thumb, and the finger. This one has the thumb and the finger. And if your bike starts to miss shifts, skip, or if your chain goes off over the top of the sprockets here or down here, there's adjustments that correct that issue. The first thing is if your bike is not shifting correctly, it's a cable adjustment. And you have a cable adjustment right here. You just turn this. If it's not going up all the way onto the next gear, you turn it counterclockwise, and that puts more tension on the cable so that the bike then shifts correctly. If it's going part way and clicking, maybe it's adjusted too far, so you turn it clockwise back down to readjust it there. Okay, the next part is if you're pedaling and shifting, and that tries to go all the way up over the top like this started to do, that's these two screws right here on your shifter, and they're always in a different location. Some of them come in from the side, some of them come in from the back, and there will be, most of the time, unless it's worn off, an H for the high side up here and an L for the low side. If the chain goes up over the top and tries to slip over the top of that sprocket, you use the high side and you turn it clockwise to make it tighter. If your shifting won't go all the way to the top gear, you turn that high side adjuster counterclockwise to allow this derailleur to go farther and actually reach that sprocket. Same situation on the low screw. When it's down to the lowest sprocket, if it goes off and gets caught in here, the lower screw, you're going to turn it clockwise in to tighten it, which stops the derailleur from traveling too far. Or maybe it's not getting to that lowest sprocket, you turn it counterclockwise to allow the shifter to go farther. Next thing is brake adjustments. Many bikes come to me with these brake pads not aligned on your rim. Sometimes they're hitting the tires, or sometimes they're missing the rim completely. Thus you have very poor braking or no braking whatsoever. So to adjust these so that they are in the correct spot, once again, there's multiple different types. Some use a wrench. This is using an Allen wrench. You loosen this Allen wrench and you get that brake pad just right. Now you hold this lever up against there to hold it in place and re-tighten that. Now your brake is in place so that the brakes will stop you good. There are different styles of brakes, which I know people have noticed in the park here, that will never ever stop you good. They'll slow you down, so always be prepared to stop. The next thing that happens with your brakes is sometimes one side of the tire, the brake pad will be rubbing on your wheel and you can't seem to fix it no matter what you do. You try to brake and it still rubs. So here, once again, different styles, is an adjustment screw that puts more spring tension on it. So like if it's rubbing on this side, I would turn this screw tighter. Mine's not rubbing, so I'm just showing you. You turn that tighter, that puts more spring tension, which pulls that brake pad away from this and pulls it closer on this side. And then you keep adjusting one side or the other until your wheel will travel all the way around without touching. Okay. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about the basic tools that you want to have on hand if you're going to do your own bicycle repairs. Number one, which we showed you in the tire fix video, this is a nice pump with a gauge that goes all the way up to 200 pounds. You're not going to use that, but 40 pounds for the basic 26-inch cruiser wheel. On my road bikes, I go up all the way up to maybe 140 pounds on my road bikes when I'm riding. If you look at the sides of your tires, they always show a pressure rating on the tire, and normally if it says 20 to 60 pounds, I would run it right in the middle at 50. Cruiser tires, they actually roll just fine at 40 pounds and you won't pop a tube that way. The next basic tools, there's a couple things. You can buy these multi-purpose tools if you're going to ride outside the park and out and around. If something happens and you need to adjust something, this has Allen wrenches, a Phillips, a star wrench, and a straight screwdriver. Very, very handy to have, and they're 10 bucks at Walmart. You already saw the tire tools. These things work great if you need to hold one and put it in place. This will lock into your spoke if you're using 2 wrenches because you're having a hard time getting your tire off. Liquid wrench, chain and cable lube, you can use that. Or you can use this style, which is a synthetic oil, which is what I like the most. On some types of bikes, oiling the cables have a housing that goes the full length. Once you get your cable out of your brake or your shifter, this screw slides over the top of the cable, tighten it down on it, and it forces, using this, which goes right in that hole there, forces oil all the way through the cable. Those are about $15 at a bicycle shop. My homemade tire stem remover, so removing the stem out of the tube. And this is just a 3-piece wrench that I use and a Phillips. Primarily, that's about 90% of everything you'll need for bicycle maintenance. Okay, I want to thank everybody for watching our video that we're doing today. We're going to talk a little bit about outside of the resort riding. We have some organized groups during the winter. I'm sure that Jody will put some information later on in the season on contact people. People that want to ride with me, I'll ride with anybody, any speed, doesn't matter. I just love to go out and ride, and I know lots and lots of routes. One of the things that's very handy, almost all the bicycle shops have these bikeway maps, and it was just updated this year, that shows bicycle routes, paved canals, paved trails. We can go all the way across the city now on paved bicycle trails and very, very little road or highway riding. It's really neat, and they're adding more and more all the time. Mike's Bicycle across the street at University and Kegley has these, and they're free. So one of the things I always like to tell people that are going to go outside the park, you can have the very basic, hit a piece of glass, pop a tire, and you're stuck. You're trying to call for a ride. Hopefully you know right where you're at so people can find you. So I tell everybody, buy one of these little pouches at Walmart or a bicycle store, and I have several things in there. Another tool. I have my tire wrenches, and I always carry 2 spare tubes. If I have a flat tire, which happens all the time, you can fix your own. And even if you can't or don't know how to fix your own, if you're on a bicycle trail, somebody will stop and help you. Most bicyclists are very friendly. So also, to fix your tube, you need a pump. You can buy a pump that'll strap right to your frame right here. And they don't work as good as my shop pump, but they will fill your tire. Always have plenty of hydration. These are insulated bottles. You can get those almost any place. Walmart, bicycle stores, Amazon. I fill them with ice and an electrolyte mix for warm days. And I have a little bag here. I always have some kind of nutrition, a protein bar or something like that to keep me going for those longer rides. Once again, this is Dan from Mesa Regal on 17th Street. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you need help with anything, come see me.